I'll never forget my experience with Hurricane Gilbert in Jamaica. That fateful weekend began like so many others on our beautiful island. It was a Sunday, September 11th, 1988, and the day dawned with a deceptive tranquility. The sun cast a brilliant, warm glow across the landscape, painting the sky in hues of soft gold and azure blue. The air was still, carrying the sweet scent of tropical flowers and the distant rhythmic murmur of the Caribbean Sea. It was the kind of idyllic Sunday morning that promises lazy afternoons and peaceful evenings, a day utterly devoid of any premonition of the chaos that was about to unfold. I was looking forward to a day of rest, a brief respite from the demands of the work week. The world felt calm, stable, and profoundly peaceful. But in the tropics, peace can be a fragile, fleeting thing. A storm gathering hundreds of miles away can shatter that serenity in an instant, and we were standing unknowingly on the precipice of such a moment. The first ripple in the day's calm came with an unexpected phone call. It was my supervisor, his voice laced with an urgency that immediately set my nerves on edge. The news was stark and unsettling. I had to report to work, immediately. As an employee at the Jamaica Telephone Company, our roles became critical during national emergencies. A hurricane watch had been issued for Jamaica. The name Gilbert, which had been a distant murmur on the radio for a few days, was now a tangible threat barreling directly towards us. The idyllic Sunday I had envisioned evaporated in that single phone call, replaced by a growing sense of dread. The atmosphere in the office was thick with tension. Maps were unfurled, tracking the storm's projected path. The lines on the chart showed a monstrous swirl of wind and rain, taking a direct aim at our island nation. The casual chatter of a normal workday was gone, replaced by focused, determined conversations about securing infrastructure, preparing emergency communication lines, and ensuring our systems could withstand the coming onslaught. As evening descended, the sky, which had been so clear just hours before, began to transform. A sickly yellow-grey tinge bled into the horizon, and the wind, once a gentle caress, began to pick up a nervous, agitated edge. It whispered through the trees with a new menacing tone. The sense of foreboding was palpable. We weren't just preparing an office for a storm. We were bracing our lives for an unknown force of immense power. That evening, we all began preparing for the worst. My colleagues and I worked with a frantic, focused energy, securing equipment and finalizing emergency protocols. After my shift, I rushed home to join my family in our own preparations. We hammered plywood over windows, the sound of the blows echoing the frantic beating of our hearts. We filled every available container with water, knowing that the public supply would be one of the first casualties. We gathered canned goods, batteries, flashlights, and a portable radio, creating a small fortress of survival essentials in our living room. The radio became our lifeline, its crackling voice delivering increasingly grim updates. The storm had intensified. Gilbert was no longer just a hurricane. It was a monster, a Category 3 storm, and it was headed straight for us. Sleep was impossible that night. Every gust of wind that rattled the windows, every distant creak of the house, sounded like the first footstep of an approaching giant. We could only wait, huddled together, listening to the symphony of the storm's overture and praying for dawn. The full fury of Hurricane Gilbert struck on Monday, September 12th. The dawn never truly arrived. Instead, the sky was a bruised, churning mass of dark grey clouds that seemed to press down on the very earth. The wind, which had been a menacing whisper the night before, now began to howl. It was a primal, terrifying sound, a continuous, rising shriek that seemed to tear at the very fabric of the world. Then came the rain, not in drops, but in solid, horizontal sheets, driven by the gale-force winds with the force of a pressure washer. It was impossible to see more than a few feet in any direction. The world outside our boarded-up windows reduced to a violent, watery blur. The sound was deafening, a relentless roar of wind and water that consumed everything. The house, which had always felt so solid and safe, began to groan and tremble under the assault. We could hear the terrifying metallic screech of our zinc roof sheets being peeled away one by one, ripped from the rafters and sent flying into the maelstrom. Each time a piece was torn loose, the sound was like a gunshot, followed by the terrifying realization that our shelter was being dismantled around us. Water began to pour into the house, first as a trickle, then as a steady cascade. We scrambled to move our few precious belongings to higher ground, fighting a losing battle against the deluge. The sheer power of the storm was biblical, a force of nature so immense it defied comprehension. It was a Category 3 impact, and it laid waste to everything in its path. Across the island, the stories of devastation began to emerge in the days that followed. The numbers were staggering, almost impossible to process. Over 100,000 homes were damaged or completely destroyed. Families who had gone to sleep in the comfort of their houses woke to find themselves homeless, their life's possessions scattered and ruined by the wind and rain. The landscape of our vibrant island was transformed into a wasteland of debris and sorrow. Gilbert had effectively wiped out the nation's entire power grid, plunging the island into a profound and unsettling darkness that would last for weeks, and in some rural areas, for months. Communications were severed, telephone lines were down, radio towers were toppled, and roads were rendered impassable by fallen trees, landslides, and floodwaters. We were cut off from the outside world, and more distressingly, from each other. In the immediate aftermath, there was no way to know if loved ones in other parishes were safe. The silence that followed the storm's roar was in some ways just as terrifying. The damage to our agriculture, the backbone of our rural economy, was catastrophic. Banana and coffee plantations, which took years to cultivate, were flattened in a matter of hours. Towering coconut palms were snapped in half like matchsticks. The vibrant green of the island was replaced by a muddy, desolate brown. Fields of sugarcane, vegetables, and fruit were submerged under floodwaters, a total loss that would have devastating economic consequences for countless farmers and for the nation as a whole. It was a blow from which our agricultural sector would take years to recover. Tragically, the storm's impact was not limited to property and infrastructure. The most devastating toll was the human one. 45 precious lives were lost in Jamaica. Each fatality was a story of a family torn apart, a community grieving, a future extinguished. These were not just statistics. They were our neighbors, our friends, our countrymen. They were people who had huddled in their homes, just as we had, praying for safety, only to be claimed by the storm's merciless power. Their loss cast a long, dark shadow over the island, a permanent scar left by Gilbert's passage. The memory of the hurricane is forever entwined with the memory of those who were lost, a solemn reminder of nature's ultimate indifferent power. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the stories that have shaped our world. It's 2025 and Jamaica yet again facing another hurricane storm. We should all take a moment to pray for the island and its people. We'll see you in the next one.